putting the pain into painting now on BBC Two, the Royal College of Art.
Lord Snowdon, Provost of the Royal College of Art, is on one of his regular visits.
This one is pretty amazing, isn't it? It's exactly like my office. It's quite difficult to understand this, isn't it?
Well, yes.
He's meeting the Professor of Painting, Paul Huxley, who's been in the post for 12 years.
On your way, Steve, wherever you're going, you want to get into the lift?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Huxley came to fame as an abstract painter and Snowdon as a photographer and royal consort in the early 60s.
Can you remember when we first met and how long ago it was?
You came in a black Mini, which was
Dark
terribly dark green, all right, terribly fashionable in those days. It was the early 60s, about 1964 or something, 63.
Those were the days when the buzz round figures like David Hockney and Peter Blake really put the RCA Painting School on the map. A tough act to follow for second-year students like George Shaw.
Now, without intruding, can I come and see what you're doing?
You can. I'm afraid there's not much room. We just move everything. Everything's movable.
Paintings on the floor too. George works on a small scale at the moment. I think when you arrived, you were making canvases that you sort of wrapped around yourself, didn't you? So you've
I used to live with
style.
them a little bit. Yeah. It's because I never had a studio. I used to paint in my bedroom. So
What do you use those for?
they're photographs I've taken from the places I used to play in as a child.
And you use them?
I use them for the paintings, really,
Yeah.
because it's. I don't like painting outside. It's too cold.
You see, for me, as a sort of layperson, I find it wonderful when the person who's painted something or the person who's created something or whatever actually talks about it. What I mind dreadfully is nowadays, down in the galleries, showing anything, whether it's painting, sculpture, printmaking, whatever, there's this sort of anti-caption, isn't there?
Maybe that's part of the art as well. I don't really
We have
know.
that problem in these studios
Yeah.
too sometimes.
Yeah.
I hate the word art. I never know what it is.
It's something artists do.
Yes.
Like dentists make teeth, fix teeth. Artists make art. Plumbers plumb your
Anyway, a
house.
huge long. I mean, painters paint and plumbers plumb. And sculptors sculpt.
That's the easiest way to make yourself look a bit of a twat, I think, if you define art.
Although the Royal College is primarily a college of design, the success of its painting school is vital to its reputation. And yet its loyalty to traditional techniques of paint on canvas has been seen by some as fuddy-duddy. Conceptual art and graduates of Goldsmiths College have been hogging the headlines. RCA Rector Christopher Frayling is standing his ground.
I had a hilarious argument with a member of staff at Goldsmiths a few years ago about what the word painting meant, you know, and it was like a Tom Stoppard play, you know, I was sitting there saying, I think it means the application of pigment to canvas, you know, isn't that the bottom line? No, you can use neon lights, you can use broken glass, painting is assembling things in any, well, I mean, you know, in my view, that isn't painting. So we hang on to the idea of painting, and students who want to be painters come to the Royal College, and students who want that other world go to Goldsmiths. Now, in the 80s, and to some extent in the 90s, that Goldsmiths world has been very fashionable, both with the galleries and the critics, and we have looked a little out of date.
Goldsmiths is more of a buzzword amongst journalists, and they will tend to mention Goldsmiths as a sort of brand image for a young artist. And of course they've every reason to deserve being that famous, but I think ultimately it's not particularly good for an artist to be branded as a Goldsmiths artist. I mean, they want to be themselves, and that's what I'm aiming at, to see that the emerging artists are seen for their own qualities, and not because they are products from a certain kind of system.
George Shaw, a former primary school teacher from Coventry, has a very personal approach to painting. He uses tiny pots of enamel, more commonly used to paint plastic models, to make his images.
The paint I use is the paint I used to use as a child. That's why it takes so long, because it's like painting with treacle. It's horrible. like flies and things die in it and all sorts while I'm painting.
Do you like painting?
I don't like paint very much, it just makes too much of a mess. But it's just, out of all the things I've done, it seems to be the quickest thing I can think of to make an image, really.
Laborious as the process is, George believes painting can recapture his childhood as no other medium can.
I can only take a photograph of the house as it is now. I've got no possibility of going back in time. And I can remember when I first started taking photographs and didn't stop drawing. My dad was really proud of the fact that I did a life draw and sort of make a elbow look like an elbow or a foot look like a foot. And when I started taking photographs, I think he thought it was a bit of a cop-out. And he said, "You'll never be able to take a photograph of what's in your head." And I thought, oh, and that was probably 15 years ago. And that sort of stayed, really, that sort of little statement.
It's kind of like one of the basic acts of painting is making a surface go from one colour to the other, like a white piece of canvas go from white to pink. And that's one of the ways I started painting. It's just to make something happen like that and then see what happens from there. I mean, it's kind of awkward painting with these brushes on these sticks, but I think that's something I'm interested in as well.
Jasper Joffe is still in the first year of the 2-year MA and has time to experiment with brushes.
I like the contrast of using like a tiny brush, really overloaded with paint, to try and make the same, not the same thing, but to try and make a mark. And 1 minute you're using a huge brush, and the next minute you're using this ridiculous, inappropriate amount of paint on a brush. And this is a really ugly type of painting. It's like some old-fashioned type of painter would use a lot of paint to paint with, to make a face. It's very difficult to be a painter today, because most painters have, I mean, like my sister's a painter and she's quite successful, but she doesn't earn much money even though she's successful. And she's more successful than most of us here can hope to be. And so most of us will be, have no money and not be able to paint. And I make ambitious paintings in terms of size and material. And it's going to be hard when I leave here to make paintings like this. Because, they cost a lot of money. I spent £100 on paint, £300 on paint this term, £400, whatever. Canvas costs like £50 to make. It's easier to make a little saleable painting, but I don't see the point in it.
While most of the students on the painting course spend their time actually painting, some do experiment with new media. Second-year student John Strutton uses computer-generated imagery. His tutor is Nigel Rolfe.
Part of it is probably that it's kind of voodoo to the painting department. It's like some strange kind of voodoo.
That was the choice in coming here, really. It's quite traditional, and you know that. That was what I was interested in doing, being in the painting school, but possibly seeing what would happen in the spaces in between. When I came for my interview, I didn't bring any paintings, and it was Painter Lille, that was the dialogue that I was engaged in. It was about image making.
I love it when you talk about it like that, because it actually keeps the question of painting very alive for me. Quite fetishised, aren't they? You get some sense of choking of the mouth, and it's a mouth.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that third eye too. It's like a kind of mythical face where the entry, it's a mouth, but it becomes a mask, and therefore it becomes an eye.
Yeah.
There's a digital promise there, but I know it's arrived at from an analogue time.
It's time now for the summer show, and second-year students are hanging their paintings in the Henry Moore Gallery. They're following in the wake of artists like Bridget Riley, Hockney, Kossoff, Auerbach and Peter Blake. Blake has fond memories of his days here in the 50s.
We always try to avoid being near Frank Auerbach or Kossoff because they use charcoal. And what they would do, they'd set up their easel, and then they'd put 4 thicknesses of paper, knowing that they were the serious artists. That their passion would be so intense that they'd probably go through about 3 sheets, and they knew that. and they drew very vigorously with charcoal. And there was a cloud of black dust around them the whole time, so there was always a little gap next to them where you didn't want to go and sit.
The college's most famous old boy is David Hockney, whose student works now hang in the senior common room. He was particularly famous for failing the humanities course. The professor of painting at the time was Carol Waite.
They did have official crits when you'd done your major tasks. They put them up in what they called the mural room, and Carol Waite would talk about every painting. He'd go through each one. But they also had what they called sketch club students. The students organised and put their own work in it. That wasn't the major task, you know. And I do remember Richard Hamilton. He'd been asked to come to look at the painting school, and I remember they gave prizes, I don't know, £10 or something. I remember he gave me a prize, Ron Kittai a prize, might have been Peter Phillip. I mean, and what he said was, I remember, a very stimulating event. I mean, it is a afternoon I can remember there, really, because he was from, in a sense, outside, you know, another viewpoint, and he immediately saw, and students recognized he saw, what was slowly evolving. This was something lively and fresh.
Nearly 40 years on from the success of pop art, and the class of 1998 wonder if it will be their turn next. Powerful patron and collector Charles Saatchi gets his usual sneak preview of the show.
And if you've got people like, you know, Charles Saatchi, you're looking for a new trend. And I mean, his very new trend is called emotional realism or psychotic realism or something like that. But he's been collecting some of these young artists, and of course he'll sometimes buy the whole lot. So I think it's a little easier in the last couple of years than it probably was 5 to 10 years ago. I think there's more chance that they'll do well.
In the basement of the show, John Strutton has set up his video installation, but at the last minute has decided to supplement it with a set of drawings.
I was getting very bogged down with the computer. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I thought I was losing something. I thought the content of the work was being veiled and it wasn't immediate enough. So this is really just about the sort of things that I look at, something that might have a specific meaning at that moment that I see it. So often I'll do a very quick sketch in my sketchbook or just note it down and then do a drawing when I'm back in the studio. And it's not really about style. So the red blobby mark is about the idea of what catches my eye. If I've seen it and it seems to be important in terms of the things that I'm constantly obsessed with and constantly looking at and constantly reading about, then it gets drawn.
The public has always flocked to these prestigious shows to see what this year's students have come up with.
It's free entertainment, isn't it, for some people? They come from their boring job and they come in here and they get to talk to someone they think is interesting. And they're probably no more interesting than the person standing outside selling a burger.
To me, he's trying to imitate the look of the schoolroom where you've got all the kids' drawings on the walls, that kind of effect. But you don't really see it the same. When you've got a picture with an amount of white space around it, you see that picture, you take it in. When you see it like this, it's just a tangle of mixed up images.
And I think it's a fantastic installation. I can see it at Saatchi's.
George Shaw has 5 of his enamel paintings in the show.
I like these pictures here. I like the mystery. I like the different light that they have in them. I like this shivered path, the dark mystery of trees.
You know, you sit there doing the work all day long, and then at the end of the day, you've got to take your work to almost like a car boot sale. And someone has to see how much it's worth. And it's worth whatever somebody wants to pay for it, really.
A big part of Paul Huxley's job is to sell the students' work to visiting patrons. His most important guest today is a sponsor who buys large amounts of the students' work, Serenella Ciclatera.
This one down here.
With the sleeping figure.
Yes, and this one.
And that one. Marvellous.
This one. Right. And that one. And that one, yes.
It's just a social event for the sponsors, isn't it? It's just like going to Ascot. Fundamentally, they just see art as decoration, and, you know, the Royal College of Art is a good brand name. It's like Gucci or something, you know.
But it's more than that.
I should hope so. If it's not more than that, they should close it down. You know, I mean, it's meant to be like one of the best art schools in Britain, you know, and it's meant to be a place that encourages innovation and new painting and real questioning of what we do, not a thing that turns out decoration for rich people.
We have got this picture in the middle. I like a sense of color.
What kind of collection do you have? Is it
Quite a big one.
Oh look, it's all got red dots on it, look. I mean, it's all sold. I can't remember what I priced them at, actually. What did I price them at? 900 quid. That's all right, isn't it? Yeah. It can be funny selling work, because you sort of know you don't know who's bought it or anything. I have to go and ask somebody. So, and then you don't know what they're going to do with it. But at the end of the day, it enables you to carry on working and not have to sit in Woolworths or, you know, work at McDonald's or something.
Can we buy the yellow and red?
The green and red painting.
The green and
the one in the middle.
Yes.
It's a very good response you made to the work of the students, and you bought such a lot. So that's going to make a huge difference to them.
Mrs. Ciclatera also gives an annual prize, the Parallel Prize. This year's winner is Gillian Carnegie with Lurker, a picture of a dead body in a lake.
Well, you've all met Mr. and Mrs. Ciclatera, and they've looked at the show very thoroughly, and you're the shortlisted students that they wanted to talk to, and they've come to a decision. They have an award to give, and they've got a number of purchases to make.
We come here every year, and we think this is a very strong show, and we've enjoyed talking to you all, and I guess it's been a very hard decision. In fact, we talked about it for 15 minutes and everybody had a different view, so it's like choosing a pope. Anyway, we finally come up with something we're very happy with, and so if I kind of start, we're going to award a runners-up prize at the same time, so I think if I start with the runners-up prize, which is for £500, and the runners-up prize is yourself. So well done. John Stratton. Come on, you go forward and talk about the winner. So.
Well, there's not much to say. We decided to give the Parallel Prize to Gillian, and I am sorry for the others.
And the others are having substantial purchases made from their show.
The Ciclateras like John's video so much they want to commission another.
I loved your work downstairs, the one that's in the studio downstairs. What we'd like to do is give you a commission, or to offer you a commission to create something similar. We've got some spaces in our office, and I think that they would go very well. Okay. So we're only around the corner, so perhaps you come and see us, and we can get you on your way. I'm not a technical guy, but you have to work out the technical.
I'll come down and see the space, and then I'll. If I can't see an immediate solution, then I'll go to someone who's.
Can I tell you something? I've got faith you'll find a solution.
I'm sure I will.
Okay.
Try.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful piece of work, and it was impressive. I think that's a good outcome.
I think it's the most interesting thing I've seen here for a long time, in fact.
13,000 people visited the fine art show. Huge numbers for an art school, but 3,000 down on the year before. Press coverage was minimal and not over-impressed. But both John and George have sold work and collected their degrees.
Oh, I've got the same as you.
What authority of the Senate? It's like something from Blake Seven, isn't it?
It does just say painting on there. It doesn't say painting and decorating, but that's all I've got lined up at the minute.
Albert Hall Friday.
Yeah, there's not a
Deptford Dole Office Monday.
Okay.
Now their professor has a show of his own in a gallery just off London's Cork Street. It's the most influential street in the UK for setting art prices.
No, I really like that.
Yeah. There's me.
Lovely. That's all looking wonderful.
I think so. I'm delighted with it.
After 30 years in the business, Paul Huxley is used to the commercial art world and the flack that goes with it, especially from the Evening Standard critic, Brian Sewell, not his greatest fan.
If the purpose of a head of a painting school is to teach people how to paint, then you could have found few men whose handling of paint is more insensitive. If his purpose is to arouse the imagination, show people what can be done with paint on canvas, then few people could be less suitable. That man was painting the same pictures at the end of his professional life as he was at the beginning. He was a man totally without development. Dullest painter in the world. Not quite the worst, but certainly the dullest.
But Paul Huxley's paintings sell for around 15,000 apiece, and he's decided to give up being professor and paint full-time.
Yeah. It's been 12 years now. It's been 12 very exciting years, but gradually the amount of administrative work has escalated, and it really is beginning to eat into my studio time more than I would wish.
This leaves a problem for Rector Christopher Frayling. He needs a professor of painting, and quick.
I heard of Paul Huxley's departure with some jubilation. He must have had a lot of applications for that job, because it's rather a plum.
The college wants a big name to run this department, but they can't always get what they want. It's a job Peter Blake has been offered twice.
It's a terrific job, and if I had two of me, one of them would have loved to have done it, but I didn't feel there was time to do it. And then when Paul became professor, again, Jocelyn Stevens had asked me to do it, and when I said no, they then came back to me and said, well, you can have another professor, you can have a studio, and you can have another professor who does all the work, and you just be there. And I knew it wouldn't work like that, because I would have got very involved, as Paul did. So in a way, I maybe shouldn't talk about it because I chose not to do it.
I've not been involved in art education, really. I've not done much teaching at all, really, ever. I mean, I did a little bit in the 60s in America, but only for like 6 weeks at a time, that's all.
If I'd been a professor, I would have had to have done it full time. And of course, I prefer to be a painter.
That's a problem facing the rector and pro-rector at the college.
You know, we've said we want an international figure whose work is well known. And what we've got, I think, is mainly people who will be very good on the admin side.
What those children need are plodding painters who are able to teach them, who are able to demonstrate, who are able to draw. They may have got one now, I don't know. The new head of the school may be a revolutionary.
I've already had 2 telephone calls since the advertisement appeared saying, do you mean painting with a small p? What the hell does all this mean? I mean, you know. So I want a professor of painting who's aware of these other developments, who touches them at the edges, who would welcome that kind of work, but who would centre the department on the concept of painting, on a discipline of painting. I think we can get 3 or 4 for interview out of these 16. But I wouldn't mind putting some smoke signals around to make it up to 5 or 6, to make it a full day. And I don't know if you agree that number 7,
yes,
yeah, who's ex-student,
yeah, ex-tutor.
We know, you know what he's made of.
Yeah.
Well, who else is there?
Number 8. Do you want to?
Number 8, yes. Well, that's a very radical wild man of the system, who does all sorts of
we can
things.
get some press coverage out of that
Well,
one.
no, I don't think it's applied paint to canvas for many, many years. I mean, you know, it doesn't have a centre of gravity to it. There is, however, a number 15.
Yes.
Woman, lecturer, was at the college, well exhibited.
Yeah.
Tiny bit long-winded in the manifesto, you know, a bit mealy-mouthed. I wasn't quite sure what she was on about. But do you think we should shortlist? I think we should.
I think so. And the references are interesting. The referees are interesting people.
Well, extraordinary one, very senior sort of figure
Yes,
from the establishment. And then we've got the head of painting at one of the undergraduate colleges. Number 9, solid, safe pair of hands.
Yeah. again, a lot of experience.
Not the most inspiring moment in the world, but, you know.
In the end, the professorship goes to a man who's been running one of the undergraduate courses from which the Royal College takes students, the Fine Art course at City and Guilds. Graham Crowley does his own work at the bottom of his garden in South London.
Basically, I've always wanted to do the job. I was a student there. I taught there in the 80s. I went there 26 years ago. And it's, you know, it's always been a part of my life. It's been a part of my work. It's been a vital part of my learning and my teaching. I even met my wife there. I honestly don't think that you can actually be head of the painting school, be a professor of painting at the Royal College and not be a painter. Definitely not, no. It's actually doing it that gives me the authority. Whoops.
What are you going to do when you get there?
My best.
So Graham Crowley's brief from Christopher Frayling is to centre the department round the discipline of painting. But first, he's got to find the students.
Have you seen Janine recently?
She was in the lecture, but I haven't seen her since.
Oh, very distracted. Ah, and Tom's disappeared as well. Well, what do you know? This curtain culture leaves a bit to be desired. That's brilliant, isn't it?
With yet another show coming up, the students are noticing that their new professor's style is more hands-on. He drops in on Simeon Banner.
The pictures for the interim show, there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Or is it going to be 5?
Yeah?
I'm just working on one now. Maybe that'll go in, one on the easel.
Oh, right.
I don't know yet. Early days still. Still more work to do.
Yeah, I'd wait.
But I got till Thursday, so I think, is it till Thursday?
It's this Thursday.
Yeah, this Thursday.
Simeon, yeah. Okay. Is that a line from a song, The Stars Played Music? It sounds suspiciously like one has lifted it, sampled it,
Hey, look, I would put it in
appropriated
quotes.
Yes,
Okay.
I would. Yeah, that'd be quite good. Is it though, consciously?
No. I think it was more a feeling that you just get on with it, but the help was there if you needed it with Paul. So I think this is it's quite a change.
Well, Paul Huxley was very laid back, which was nice, you know, because you just felt like the college was a really relaxed place to be. And Graham's very, like, wants to know everything and what's happening, you know, incredibly energetic and comes to see you every day. So it's a kind of change, but I mean, I think it's positive to have this shake-up in the college.
Do you think you learnt more from your fellow students or from the staff?
Well, probably from your I think that's probably what it would be like now, in a way. Of course you learn a lot from fellow students. I mean, simply watching somebody make marks on a canvas, doing all kinds of things. I mean, you thought it was a very alive place, I did. And in a way, the staff didn't hinder that. I mean, that was their major point, really. They did, in the end, encourage it.
Sounds a very minimal contribution that you describe.
But,
They
no,
kept out of
but
the
I
way.
mean, in the end, they picked the students. I mean...
Call me old-fashioned, but I think painting is something you can teach. There's an element of technique, of physical craftsmanship, as well as conceptual, aesthetic ideas. So you can form a judgment of that.
You either have teachers who you fight against or ones that fight with you, and either can work. I mean, they're both... It's so long as there's something stimulating, in a way. I mean, argument is stimulating. Yeah. It's just so long as there's an argument, not authority saying this must be this. Yeah. You know, I mean, it actually... They encouraged the argument. Yes, it did, really, looking at it. I mean, that was why it was lively.
Professor Graham Crowley will see every second-year student in his first term. He has an appointment with Jasper Joffe.
Hi, James. Yes, please. Yes. Right. Have you done some more work on the piece with the candle? You haven't you? There's something running down the centre of the candle. Looks suspiciously like wet paint.
Yeah.
Is it new?
It's not. I mean, they're nearly finished now, these paintings, I think.
That wasn't there last week, was it? This thing here. This area here. Has that been repainted?
That's been there. Must have been there for ages.
Was it?
I've been working on the other two, which are behind these, but they're hard to see. I've done two more.
Yes.
I mean, I think these are finished. I'm just looking at them now. I mean,
Finished in the sense that you don't know what more to do to them, really.
that I don't want to do any more to them.
Yeah.
What do you think of them?
What do I think of them? They are so in your face. They're so out there, as it were, that you're just asking for a sort of smack on the nose, really. They do make me laugh, particularly in moments when you're trying to be self-serious, analysing sort of the dignity of painting and stuff, and you know full well that you can knock that out in 2 seconds, sort of thing.
I mean, they're empty in a way because I mean, in a way, they're completely empty.
Well, no, that's a tautology, isn't it? Yes, of course they're empty because they're empty. That's a rather empty statement.
You get the person who's happy on the outside, and this cliche, but you have that cliche of the sad person inside and the gregarious social person.
Yes, that's right, the sad clown.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that is a cliche, isn't it?
What it's an idea. So I mean, what is it that you don't like about these paintings from a painting perspective? I mean,
well, just from a simple human perspective, I think they're overbearing. I think they're, what should I say, small beer written large, if that isn't a mixed metaphor. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I think there's an overweening pride. I'll tell you, one of the other things that, really, that does bother me about these is that I don't think that at the end of the day you're very concerned whether one is much better than the other. What kind of criteria are you using to distinguish the better parts of these pictures from the not so good parts?
Well, that's the whole problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, hold on. That's not an answer, is it?
I know,
because,
but
yeah,
it's
it is. That's why I'm
difficult
turning it around, because it is a difficult one.
I think it's impossible to pin down criteria for why actual areas of painting are better than others, except for saying, I'm a good painter, I know what good painting is, and that's all. That's all I can come. I've been spent years trying to think how can I say a painting is better than another one, or a bit of a painting is better. And all I come back to is that I am actually clever. I am a good painter, which is why they're probably infected with this kind of arrogance, because I think arrogance is all I can find at the moment to say these paintings can exist.
After his grilling, Jasper compares notes with Simeon.
I think it's difficult to make any kind of image because, what are the rules? There's nobody coming here and saying, oh shit, you can't paint like that.
You can pick it up from the tutors whether you are shit or not, and whether you can paint, whether they think you can paint.
Do you think your ability to paint is an issue?
Yeah, I think it is. Fundamentally it is.
I think you're a person, a lot of students here, it strikes me, they kind of fear meaning, fear saying, yeah, I'm making this kind of statement, this is about this. There's a sort of general fear, I think.
Well,
but you've got to make it so if the statement.
Why didn't you tell Graham what your paintings are about then?
I mean, I told him what they were about as much as I could tell him what they were about. I mean, you have to separate your influences from ultimately what you create. If people are misreading what you've made, that's
well, maybe you're not doing very good paintings if people can't read them. I have more faith in what I do than I just believe in painting, and I don't believe in sort of sucking up to an audience which is stupid.
You've got to meet the audience halfway. I think I'm a believer in that. Otherwise, you just isolate this thing, don't you? You just isolate this activity. It becomes so specialised. We're like, working on microbiology or something in some lab, and nobody knows what we do, or nobody sees the products of what we do. I think that's dead end.
Yeah, and then you find a cure for cancer.
Maybe it's a bad analogy.
A month into his new job, and Graham Crowley is about to have his own painting assessed. He has an exhibition opening tonight in London's East End.
The funny thing is, I've actually painted all of these pictures since I knew about the Royal College job. And
that's what Juliet was saying.
Yeah, that's sorry. That's
an attack of what? Of inspiration?
Well, no, I think inspiration and a little bit of anxiety, because what was going to happen was I knew I had the show coming up. I then realised I...
That's putting your head in the block, isn't it?
Yeah.
Professor of painting, eh?
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, Simeon.
Hey, how are you?
There you go.
Looks nice. I haven't had a good look yet.
Listen. Go from here into the back room.
You tell me, you've got to recommend which pictures to look at.
No. You'll come back and tell me. Go from here into the back room, and then go downstairs, and it's like another show. Wait and see. All right?
It's terribly Japanesey, don't you think?
It's quite a shock to see see your professor's paintings, because it's quite a big thing to know whether he's like good or bad, because it's going to affect kind of how much respect you have for him. My heart sank when I saw them first, because they look a bit like 60s impasto flower paintings at first, with the colour washed out. But then I looked a bit closer, and they're okay. You know, I mean, they look like proper art.
Back at the college, Jasper is preparing for his own show. He's having difficulty deciding exactly how high his canvases should be hung.
That's nice.
Jasper, I'll tell you what you could do. If you could knit downstairs, there's a bradawl down there. If you could bring it up.
Controversially, Jasper's paintings appear to be signed by Adolf Hitler.
I've talked to my tutors, and the A Hitler thing doesn't. It's not just provocative. I mean, it's like quite a complex idea, but I mean, basically, it's saying that you can paint anything because painting is like the most wonderful thing in the world. So even if I do a painting which is A Hitler, it's still a painting, and that's better than anything. I don't have to have any responsibility to my subject matter. I can paint anything because I'm a painter. And so the A Hitler is like asexual. It's not Hitler in the end. It's quite a sort of it's kind of a pun. I think that's a bit high actually. I better. Can I not get like an inch lower?
An inch lower? Well, you're getting very close to that ridge down there. That's the only trouble. Can you see you're only an inch or two above it?
Do you want me to go and get that bridle? But
no, it's all right.
I think it's nicer a bit lower.
Well,
just because when you look from a distance, you get the top of the
have
picture.
a look down below and see that ridge.
They could both sit on the ridge.
I'll tell you, I'm going to kneecap you later. Anyway. Right, okay, Jasper, let's... Steve, we're going to take it off.
They're going to kill me, Peter and Steve. I have to buy them lots of champagne when I sell all my work to some major dealer.
Professor Huxley's abstract painting comes down from display in the senior common room and goes off to storage, to be replaced by new Professor Crowley's monochrome flowers.
That works well.
After 2 terms, the new professor enthuses about his plans to carry on prioritising painting while encouraging new media as well.
This is the formal timetable.
The interview time, yeah.
Thank you.
And to the rector's relief, painting does have a moment of glory. For the first time in 13 years, a painter wins the coveted Turner Prize, and he's a recent graduate of the RCA.
Chris or Philly?
And Chris O'Feely is not the only one to have won a prize. A scholarship to paint in Rome for 9 months, with a studio thrown in, has been awarded to Jasper Joffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I never win anything, and I've always been really against competitions, and suddenly I feel really, like, happy that I keep kind of being lucky in these things.
And you're onto a new style, or what?
I decided to do some more sort of tight paintings that would kind of sell to Saatchi or something, you know. They're much more kind of figurative and they take longer. It might appeal to the sort of more general buyer who would, you know, like something with a bit of skill and effort in it rather than this type of painting, you know, which is like messy and looks like someone who can't paint.
You're still against decorations for rich people?
Oh, very much so, but I would like some spending money.
And the Royal College of Art returns at the same time next week here on BBC Two.